Okay. Welcome to the Brown Spade Podcast Show. And I just want to let the fans know that we are listening. You guys want us to do a part two. So now here we are having a part two, having your affairs in order, meaning we got to be more accountable as men with insurance for our family to take care of our family. And this conversation stemmed from Mr. A.J. Johnson, may he rest in peace, the late comedian. And so today, since we're having a part two, we brought in a professional, Miss Noelle Thornton. How you doing, Miss Thornton?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
And I have my brother Cleveland with us as always. That's my brother from another mother. So would you go ahead and introduce yourself and explain to our audience what's the importance of having insurance?
Okay, sure. So, hi everyone. Hi to all the listeners. My name is Noelle Thornton, and I'm a State Farm agent located in Smyrna, Georgia, off South Cobb Drive. And I think the importance of having life insurance is it's really not about you. It's about the family members and the loved ones that you're leaving behind,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that they can either take care of themselves, they can pay off maybe personal debts that you have, or they can continue on with their lifestyle. So I think a lot of people don't really think about what will happen to their family members or loved ones once they're gone. It's really, difficult for a family to be in mourning at the loss of a loved one, and then now they have to mourn, even further just because the affairs are not in order. So it just causes unnecessary stress and anxiety for the loved ones who are left behind.
Okay. Um, a lot of people, especially in our community, the Black community, it kind of it gives me a bitter taste in my mouth uh, I'm freezing up. I don't know why, but it gives me a bitter taste in my mouth when they have these GoFundmes,
Mm-hmm.
and I was that's why I had to bring that in the first subject. I mean, the first show that we had, I brought that up as well because I don't think we should depend on that. I don't want that to be the culture where we're going as a Black community of just you know literally begging.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I think we need to hold ourselves accountable as men, and if you're single, and if you're a mother and a single mother, then hold yourself accountable as a mother as well. We shouldn't be out here uh, asking the public to put our loved ones to rest.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I,
So Ms. Thornton, what was you about to say? Go ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just going to say I completely agree with you. I think that it just really requires a little bit of planning to make sure that the family is set up properly, and that you're not left with the stress of having to find money at the last minute to cover these final expenses. So
Right.
I think that individuals really just should find a trusted agent to sit down with, and just start the conversation, because life insurance can be intimidating because people don't really know where to start, or
Right.
they just think that it's not affordable. And there are literally policies out there that could be $20 a month, the same price of maybe going out to lunch or going out to dinner for the day. So I
Yeah.
think it just requires a little bit of planning on each of our parts to make sure that we're not putting the burden on other people when we can really set that up ourselves, just by sitting down with a professional that can really simplify it and break it down for you and make it very easy.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Thornton, what are the types of life insurance that are available to
Mhm.
us out there?
Okay, so just to make this really simple, when you think about life insurance, there are really two main types of life insurance. And so there is life insurance that is temporary, meaning that it might only last for 10, 20, or 30 years. And there are people who need that type of policy for a specific reason.
Is that considered term?
That is term insurance. That's right. So
Okay.
term insurance is just temporary insurance. It only lasts for a specific period of time, and that is the least expensive insurance that you can purchase. Okay, so there's certain scenarios when that might be what you need. Then there's also called permanent insurance, and that is also known as whole life or maybe universal life, which
Right.
people have typically heard of. And the main difference there is that that policy lasts until age 100 or death. So it's a permanent policy. It's something that you will have forever. One of the other things that's different and unique about a permanent policy is they tend to accumulate cash. So one of the things that people don't understand is that they think about life insurance as a death policy or death benefit where you receive money once the person is gone. But with some of the permanent policies, they also accumulate cash within the policy so that you can access cash within that policy while you're alive. So those are some of the main differences, is the length of time in terms of the longevity and how long they last, as well as what the policy can do for you once you're gone and while you're alive.
So if you withdraw that money from the policy while the person that you paying the policy and the person's still living, withdraw that money, do you have to pay that money back?
Yes.
It's almost like a loan, huh?
So it depends on what type of policy that you have. Some permanent policies you can withdraw funds, and then some policies you can borrow funds. Yeah. And so when you borrow the funds, it treats it as if it's a loan, as if you're borrowing from yourself. So if you do not pay the money back, so let's say you have $100,000 policy, meaning that your family will receive $100,000 if you pass away. You borrow $10,000, the person passes away, you never paid the money back. All they're going to do is subtract the $10,000 from the $100,000 death benefit. So now the family receives $90,000 instead of.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's permanent.
Yeah, that's whole life. That's whole life.
Whole life. That's
whole life policy, which is permanent, and there's also a universal life. Universal life you can sometimes withdraw cash from, and whole life you can borrow from. So there are a couple of little intricate details there, but those are some of the main differences between those two.
Gotcha.
Okay. What would be a good scenario to go by if you wanted to determine between the two? Like what situation will cause you to maybe go with life term? What would be some good good scenarios of yes?
Yeah, so like you said, okay, so the one thing that you pointed out very well is that everyone's situation is completely different. So life insurance is not a one size fits all. You definitely want to sit down with someone that can help walk you through the process to figure out what's right for you. So I'll use myself as an example. I have a whole life policy and I also have a term policy. So I have 3 kids under the age of 7, and something happens to me, then my husband has to pay all our bills by himself. He has to try to get the kids through college. As you guys know, the moms, we do everything. So he will have to find a nanny, or hopefully not another wife, but some other person to help, do all the things that I do around the house and with the kids, right? So that's a lot. So my point in saying that is that we have that need in terms of replacing the salary that he would lose for me working and helping to contribute to the family and taking care of those kids. We have that need up for maybe the next 20 years, right? So once they get through college, then they should be self-sufficient and not necessarily dependent on us. So I could technically get a 20-year term life policy that covers our unique need for 20 years. And then once that expires, then I'm done, okay?
Right.
But I also have a permanent policy running concurrently, because when that 20-year policy is up, I still need a death benefit, because at some point I'm going to pass away one day, and my husband needs to be able to take care of funeral expenses and so on and so forth. So in that situation, you can see I have 2 policies running concurrently, but they're serving different needs. And the reason that I have 2 separate policies is because the term policy is going to give me a lot more coverage for a lower price. So I can get $1 million policy. I'm just making this number up, maybe for $20. If I try to get that same amount of coverage in a permanent policy, it might be $200. So that's the point of having 2 different policies.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know, because a lot of people, as far as they look at term, which I understand term is cheaper, but everyone's scenario, everyone's situation is totally different. And you can, you could benefit from, having term in whole. And that, I mean, that's a great example to what you just gave. I was talking to a friend about life insurance, and he was telling me, well, me and my wife, we both have, insurance through our jobs. So my question to you is, How is that? How can you benefit from getting life insurance outside of just having insurance through your job?
Your job. Okay, so let me tackle the life insurance at work. It's great to have at work because that's the least expensive form of life insurance that you can get at work.
Right.
Typically, people, the policies that they have at work are typically not enough coverage. The industry recommendation is to, a lot of times, depending on your situation, have 10 times your salary, and some people have 1 times or not, maybe not that amount. So the life insurance at work is great, but the majority of people cannot take that policy with them when they leave. So
Right.
if you get laid off or you leave your job, that policy is probably going to stay with your employer.
Mm-hmm.
You've been there for 10 years and now you have to start over 10 years later and
Right.
go and get a brand new policy. And the
Correct.
cost of the life insurance is based on your age and it's based on your health. So now that you're older, you're paying more than you would have if you had bought it 10 years ago. So
Right.
that's, those are kind of some of the pros and cons of having it at work.
Right. So it's an advantage to get it when you're young.
Right.
But you're still paying a small amount, and as you get older, if you have pre-existing disease or pre-existing health issues, then your insurance will increase on your monthly payments.
Yeah, so I think in our community, in a lot of communities, we're misinformed. I know I personally was told or I was taught to not buy life insurance until later in life because I didn't need it. I didn't have a family. I wasn't married, so on and so forth. And it was actually not the best advice because life insurance is so much cheaper when you're 19 and 20. And
Right.
there are some policies that if you buy it, excuse me, you buy that policy, you can actually pay it up. Much like when you buy a car, you pay for the car for 5 years, 3 years, or 7 years. And once you're done paying for it, you own the car. There's some life insurance policies that are like that, where once you start paying for it, you pay for a specific period of time, you can actually own the policy and it's still in force. So for those reasons, it's cheaper to buy when you're younger. And then also to your point, if you develop a health condition, some people have, and unfortunately contracted COVID. There are some people who have long haul COVID or other health conditions, and those can make you ineligible for life insurance, or it can cause it to cost significantly more because there is kind of a health surcharge that's added on to the cost.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I tell the story all the time. I have a friend who every time someone was born in a family, that the grandparents and the parents automatically take out a policy on themselves for them. And once we got we got to high school, his grandmother passed, and him and his sister both. I mean, not his grandmother, his grandfather passed. Him and his sister both. I think they got like $3 or $4 million.
Wow.
Yeah, but then some years later, probably like 5 years later, after we got out of high school, his grandmother passed, and they got like $3 million from that policy. But he told me, he said these policies started with my great grandfather. And the first policy my great grandfather got, he said it was like $100, maybe $200 policy.
Yep.
And it has grown over the years, and he said, and that's what we do in our family. And I'm like, if I would have known, what I'm saying, and understood the meaning of that. And now he has car dealerships. He lives in Cali, but he has car dealerships, and it makes sense.
It just goes back to the point we were talking about earlier, where it's not about you. It's what can you do to benefit your family and then also potentially create generational wealth. And
that's what I was just about to say. I was just about to say that. It's wealth building. But people don't, they looking at it from the their point of view, but you're putting your family in a better position.
Absolutely. That's why so many of our, other ethnic groups and communities have an advantage in a lot of ways, because they understand what life insurance can do. So if you think about it, you can leave enough money behind for your child to start a business, or buy their first house and not have a mortgage, or completely pay for college in full.
Right.
Like you said, it's a beautiful thing because you keep that generational wealth, passed down the pipeline, and it just creates so many opportunities for the future of the family. So I think that's a beautiful story, and that's a great example of what you can do to set your family up for success.
Yeah, because it is, and with him and his sister, I mean, I heard. I mean, he told me this, once we got out of high school. But I was like, oh, okay. Now, and I'm still thinking that life insurance is expensive. And then my first marriage or whatever, we really dug into it and looked at the understanding of life insurance. So we did invest, and then I mean, we education is one of the biggest problems that hurts us when it comes to this. Just like with the guy AJ Johnson, the comedian. He was well known. I mean, who don't know who he was? What I'm saying, who he is. And yeah, he did have a fan base, but from us looking at him and seeing him on television, we thinking he has everything in order.
Right.
I felt bad for his wife for, she had to get on television and ask for, help or whatever. But we figured that being that he was a celebrity, that he would have his, and that goes to show you that it doesn't matter.
Right.
You are, death is coming. And when it does come, you need to be prepared for it. You just need to be prepared for it.
And the thing about it too, I mean, I'm just to add on to what you're saying, Cleve, is even if you've been looking for the last 5-10 years, celebrities have not had their affairs in order. James Brown, he was one of them. He was out of his grave for a long time. They was fighting over that. Aretha Franklin, she didn't have a will. So those things, that it's not just because you make money, you have your assuming that everything is taken care of. And I think that's what we lack, because we need to have more knowledge about insurance and policies in place to protect our loved ones when we make that transition.
Go ahead, Noah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in and say, I think it's also about too, just having a sense of urgency. I think that, sometimes people don't expect, they think, I know everyone doesn't think they'll live forever, but they don't expect to pass away tomorrow.
Right.
So it's that mentality of, what, I'll call next Friday. I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it over the holidays when we all sit down. And you just can't have that mentality. You have to have a sense of urgency when it relates to that, because you just never know when you're going to go. I mean, who is COVID in this pandemic, to come?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I think a lot has to do with, when I do leave, I'm leaving this person or my family, they're going to be living better than I was. And that's one of the conversations I was having with a friend of mine. I'm like, well, and I told him, I said, it's insurance out there where you can get just for burial. You don't, and so can you elaborate on that, Noel? Just because he won't listen to me, but you're a professional and he will listen
to the professional. Right.
That is very true. What we often find is seniors who may not have a lot of assets to leave behind, or bills that need to be paid when they're gone. They don't really feel like they need a large policy, which they may not need. And so what they do is they'll get maybe like a small $10,000 policy that is designed just to cover the funeral expenses or the burial expenses.
Right.
So those policies definitely exist, and that can, be for someone who doesn't need to leave a lot of money behind, or they just, don't have the interest in doing that.
Right.
Okay. And also, how important is it to have a will?
Yes, so very important. I think that is another area where there's some, lack of education and information. First of all, one of the professionals that individuals can meet with would be an estate planning attorney. A estate planning attorney can provide a lot of information and education on having a will versus having a trust, which one makes sense for you. There are some individual situations where people have a trust set up, and they have small kids who may not be able to make a decision or do anything with the money if the parents pass away. So they will have the trust be the beneficiary or the recipient of the life insurance money, instead of it going directly to an individual or family member. So that way, when the kids are of age, maybe 18 years or however old they need to be, they actually can receive the money and do something with it at that point. But the whole point of having that will or having a trust in place is so that you get to decide what happens with your assets, with your money once you're gone. versus having the court step in and decide and make decisions for you and your family. So it's about you taking that control back from the courts and saying, listen, when I pass away, this is everything that I want to happen to my family. These are the people that will take care of my children. The house will go to this person. The car will go here. And if you don't have a lot of that stuff in writing, the courts will make those decisions for you, and it can really drag the process out. So that's another, process that's really critical for people.
And in some cases, in some states, they will collect the money, and it's just the state have your assets.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's billions, millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, because people didn't have their affairs in order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was DMX recently with when he passed, and he was, and that's another thing as far as if you don't have a will, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you don't have a will, like you said, if the person was to pass and y'all not married, and y'all have been together for so many years, and and it doesn't state, no documentation stating that this money goes to this person or that person, like you end up losing. You end up losing out.
Yeah.
And it's sad because there's a lot of people that actually, and I'm not saying that you need to sit down and say, look, I know we're not married, but you need to add me to this, but you need to have these conversations with, especially if you got kids, you need to have these conversations with your kids, your loved ones. And a lot of people, don't trust, a person to allow them to handle the money, but you want to make sure your loved ones is taken care of.
That's right.
You want, and I have said, talk to friends and family just about this, and because I don't specialize in this, they're not gonna take it from me, but it's definitely important to have a will, to let people know,
what,
who gets what, because family have broken up over money.
I mean, you brought the example of earlier. I think James Brown, there was a lot of fighting.
Yeah. I think he was out of his, he wasn't buried for months.
Right. Prince, I believe Prince
didn't even have a will, right? Yeah.
Didn't have a will. So, I mean, you're right. It's just, I mean, and like you said, Cleveland, I think it can, again, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but I think it can get a little tricky when there's maybe an ex-wife involved and a current wife.
Yeah.
Kids involved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of stuff, you just want to go ahead and get that taken care of, because that can just create a whole lot of unnecessary drama. And the whole point of the will is to ensure your will, is carried out.
Right.
That people know what your wishes are and it's executed upon, versus other people making decisions about what happens with all the things that you worked so hard, to acquire. And then, like you said, making sure the kids are in a good position and they're taken care of. So I think it is critical.
And one of the questions, my friend, he said, well, how much life insurance do I need? And I said, well, you would have to sit down, with somebody and talk. How can you determine, how much life insurance you would need?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a State Farm agent. We actually have a calculator on our website on statefarm.com, where you enter a few pieces of information and the tool will actually calculate it for you to help you figure it out. So it can be really simple. But what you typically want to think about is what needs to be paid off when you pass away. So for example, a mother and father who have maybe co-signed on a student loan, for example, for a child that's in college, if you've co-signed on a loan, you could potentially be liable to continue to pay for that loan, if the child passes away, for example. So if you have a student loan out there that's $100,000, you want to make sure maybe you have a life insurance for at least that amount. If you have assets that you're leaving behind that you want to pay off. So let's say, for example, you're a husband and you have a wife and 2 children, and you want to make sure that if something happens to you, your wife doesn't have to worry about making a mortgage payment because maybe she's a stay-at-home wife and doesn't work. or she's just dependent on your income, you want to make sure your kids and wife have a place to live. You want to have enough life insurance to at least pay the mortgage off. So it really depends on what you're possibly trying to pay off in terms of debts, or either to assets to leave behind for people that they don't have to take care of, or it could be an ailing parent that you're leaving behind who will still have to cover, the cost of medications, or have a nurse come in if they're living with you and you're taking care of them. You have to cover the cost of a nurse to come in the system. So, but the point of in all of this, and one more point I need to make too, is also your loss of income is also a big factor. So if you have family members who are dependent on your income, you can basically calculate how much you make every year, figure out how many years you are away from retirement. So if you're 20 years away from retirement, you make 50,000 a year. You can multiply 50,000 times 20 years, and whatever that number equates to, that's the amount of money that your family would be missing out on over the next 20 years because they were dependent on your income. So it's loss of income as well. So the point is to sit down with a professional. You can walk them through and give them all the information in terms of what your goals are, what you have, what you want that life insurance policy to do for you, and it's really easy to come up with a number.
Right.
Yeah, because I was telling my friend, like, yeah, you have to sit down and calculate, yeah, like basically, everything you said. And he kind of got nervous because he started calculating how much money somebody else would get while he not here no more. And I'm like,
that's how a lot of people think.
I'm like,
about what somebody going to receive when they pass away. Like, you're dead and gone.
Gone, man. You can't do nothing with it. I said, what can you do with it?
Life goes on,
Absolutely.
And also, guy, what was you about to say, Noel?
I was just gonna say, but what's wrong with that though? You know what I mean?
I think it's a selfish thought. I think sometimes we get so selfish. We be like, man, if she get that money, if she get that money, if he get that money, they're gonna go get married and live their life off the money that when I'm dead. I mean, it's a very selfish thought.
I know I will.
I do.
But the reality is, life goes on. That is the reality. Life goes on.
A lot of men say that she's gonna take the money, find a new man, and driving around a Maserati, living in Buckhead, or living this fabulous life, and I'm gone. So,
but he gonna do the same thing. If he get a policy from her, like we can't be.
It's a selfish thought.
We can't be that selfish, man. You gotta. We have to. Like to me, it's like I want to leave a legacy, and most men that I know, most men that I socialize with, we want to leave a legacy. So being that, not only just with your presence, as far as your intelligence and your knowledge and your discipline and stuff that you bring as a man, you also want to be able to lead your legacy on your people being able to pass it on to your grandkids. You will want your grandkids to have a head start.
Yeah.
And that's what I was explaining to him. Like, we at our age, we're trying to build legacies. We're not out here trying to leave our family in financial debt or problem. No, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's you shouldn't even think like that, because you got to look at it. If you love this person, and if you do make that transition, don't you want to make sure they're okay? That's how you have to look at it. You can't be looking at, if they get remarried and they find somebody. That's petty thinking. We have to stop being so petty.
Because you're gonna have your kids possibly gonna have kids.
Yeah.
And on top of that, with that money, you also have to educate your family in because that generational wealth will stop when you die. Like, boom, but you have to educate them on that as well.
And that's financial literacy. That's a whole nother subject.
That's another That's another subject.
Just to add on to what you guys are talking about, even aside from generational wealth, like the proceeds of life insurance, it doesn't have to be limited in terms of going to a family member. There are some people who may not have family to leave it behind to, but you can leave it to your church. If you're into tithing, or you think that's important, or you're supportive of a local community cause or charity, you can leave money behind in that way, to HBCUs. There's so many different things that you can do to just give back. But that's, to y'all's point, that's really what it's all about. It's not being selfish. It's not for you. It's what can you do to try to help benefit someone else.
Right.
Yeah, because yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you can leave your family, not only just your knowledge, but you could also leave them money to help them, like you said, buy your first house or buy your first car.
And someone to college.
Open up your first business, or open up the family business.
Yeah.
Or
Be debt free.
You can leave it. Yeah.
So thank you again for coming. Would you like to give out your information? Because for those who are listening, we may, maybe we have some listeners who would like to go through you because they may feel comfortable after you giving your details about the insurance and stuff.
Sure. Well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for having me. This was my first podcast, so I appreciate you having me. It was actually a lot of fun. I was nervous, but it was fun. But so Noelle Thornton State Farm, if you Google me, you'll be able to see reviews for those who want to look at reviews to make a decision first before they, decide to talk to someone or work with someone. I am located at 4579 South Cobb Drive, Suite 600 in Smyrna. My office number is 678-567-0278. And my email address is just simply noelle@insurewithnoelle.com.
Okay. Thank you very much again for coming. And I am honored to have you for your first podcast.
Thank you.
And it was nice meeting you as well.
Nice.
Yeah, because we the first one that we did, people was asking questions. They like, I checked out the podcast, but they was asking me a lot of questions, and I'm like, well, I'm not a professional, but I'm gonna try to get someone on here, and you're the first name I thought of. I said, you know what? I know who to go to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We family. We go way back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I definitely appreciate this.
No problem.
Because I'm pretty sure that it covers a lot of questions that people have with life insurance. And I know you can't give a direct number on how much you will pay for life insurance, but
they have a calculator. She said they have a calculator on the website, and she also specified they can get insurance as low as $20 a month.
Yeah.
And then you got to think about it too. For the listeners, some of you guys are paying $100 a month for a cell phone. So come on, so don't act like you can't pay for a policy.
Right. That's so true. Yeah. That calculator helps determine how much you need. And then if you sit down with an agent, it takes 5 minutes to prepare a quote to figure out, how affordable it is. But like you said, $20, it could be less than that.
Yeah, could be less than that.
Yeah.
And depending on your health. Depending on your health now. If you have some pre-existing stuff,
and your
price
age
is gonna go up a little bit. Because I pay my mom's insurance, and I spend a little bit, but we got it. I got her.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, this was good.
All right.
So
before we leave, one more thing. We always leave with words of wisdom. So starting off with our guest, Ms. Noelle, would you like to have some, words of wisdom or just the last say so to the audience?
Oh man. Let's see. I would just say don't be intimidated by a lack of knowledge or information. Just find a professional that you feel that you can trust. Do a little bit of research on your own before you meet with that individual, so you are informed as to what they're talking about. But I would just say, if you haven't started, don't feel bad about that, and don't feel intimidated by what you don't know, because there are a lot of people who start later in life, and within our community, sometimes again, there's just a lack of education. So again, don't beat yourself up, don't feel bad, don't be intimidated. Just go ahead and make a phone call today and get started with something. Anything is better than nothing.
Right. What you got, Clay?
All right. Once again, thank you, Ms. Thornton, for coming on. I really appreciate that. Also, go to YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe, share. you know, with friends and family that you think, you know, they will be interested in hearing the podcast today. And I would just say, you know, we have to, as men, and I'm speaking, this is talking to men. Listen, we have to be able to leave something for our loved ones, if you have any loved ones, you know, to be able to take on to, you know, to your grandkids, or pass on to your grandkids. Not, I mean, knowledge is definitely important, but also if you just think about how we grew up, and you know how it's things that we wanted or that we needed and we couldn't get it, we had to wait till we was older to get. I mean, your child won't have to worry about that, you know. I mean, college is getting more and more expensive. So to me, I think this is a way of leaving a legacy, you know, with your family. And we always talking about building wealth. I mean, this is the step.
It's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, this is the step.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, you know, as just to piggyback off what Cleveland said, as men, we should be. I think we should start early. We should start our boys early talking about this stuff. They need to start hearing this stuff a lot more earlier, so they could be a lot more responsible when it comes to being responsible men. Because this show is trying to, you know, talk about family and relationships and building, you know, talk about real things. So I think that we definitely need to talk more about it, to just educate us more about real life situations and stop talking about the superficial things that doesn't mean anything. And we have to step our game up as men to help our community, because again, if we don't lead, then we're not going anywhere. And that's why we're in the position where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We out.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Peace.